Hey everyone, Life Coach Carisa here. Welcome back to my channel. Have you ever felt like you're constantly pulled in a million directions, always saying yes until you've completely exhausted yourself? Well, this month we've been diving into time scarcity and productivity without overwhelm. And today we're tackling the big one, overworking and overcommitting. And I want to tell you how to break this cycle. We're going to explore why high achieving women especially struggle to rest and how to create true balance in their life. So stick around because this might just be the permission slip you've been waiting for. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I am so happy to be talking more about time scarcity and productivity without overwhelm this month because this is such an important topic that many of us find ourselves getting stuck in. Today's video is titled Overworking and Overcommitting: How to Break the Cycle. Now, if you're anything like I used to be, you might feel a constant, relentless pressure to do it all. Maybe you find yourself saying yes to every request, piling more onto your plate until you are completely drained. This is a common story, especially for high achieving women. We've been told, often implicitly, that our worth is tied to how much we accomplish and how busy we are and how well we juggle everything. I was recently reflecting on my own journey, and growing up, I saw a father who overworked, where contributions never seemed to be quite enough. And my mother was always in motion. She was rarely sitting still. And I have a grandmother who was a true workhorse, always busy, always doing something that seemed productive. And so these weren't just observations, they were deeply ingrained messages. It took, just seeing that and experiencing that for me to start thinking about the opposite of that was being lazy, right? And so I internalized this narrative that I could never work really hard enough to be considered good or worthy. And so these subtle, sometimes subconscious messages from our childhood can profoundly shape how we view our contributions and this need for constant activity. So there's this illusion of doing it all, right? What does this even mean? What does doing it all actually look like? Well, it's this massive overarching expectation to be everything to everyone. If you have a career, it's about flawlessly covering all your bases there. If you're a parent, it's managing every aspect of the household in the family. And for some, especially single moms, it's literally carrying the entire weight of everything. And so doing it all means making sure that everyone's needs are met. But here's the crucial part. This very often does not include your own needs. Your well-being gets put on the back burner, right? Filed under maybe someday I'll have time, but that someday rarely comes unless we wake up, become intentional, and decide to carve out specific time for ourselves. We need to be intentional. I will even go as far to say selfish, because if we can be a little selfish about how we care for ourselves, then we will be able to be giving more of ourselves, right? And it will feel so much healthier of a balance for us. Because if we don't work, nothing else does, right? We can't give to anyone from an empty cup. So I think that we want to be a little bit selfish. Let's just use that word, right? And create a routine of where we fill our own cup. Now let's talk about, why do we struggle to rest? Why is it so hard for high achieving women to rest? I think, again, it often goes back to those deep-seated narratives, because for many, there's an ingrained belief, perhaps from outside pressure, that it's kind of lazy to rest or to not be constantly doing something, right? I remember times when I would maybe be watching TV for just a short while, and immediately I'd feel this pull to be more productive. I didn't even want anyone seeing me doing it because I was afraid I would look lazy. That impression came from somewhere. I wasn't always that way. And, so often we'll just say yes to everything because we don't want to disappoint people and we want to make everyone happy. And people asking things of us, they don't often understand the sheer volume of what's already on our plate when they're asking, right? And because we don't say no, we get caught in this systemic pattern. I was thinking about this. Our bodies and our minds become so habitualized to constant functioning, and it it feels incredibly difficult to not do that, right? It's like if I asked you to drive a completely different route to work when you've been on autopilot for years going the same way, it would throw you a loop. And so the longer we've been living this way, the more ingrained it becomes. And it really will require focus and presence to change that pattern. I have many memories of overworking and overcommitting, and I had a strong tendency to say yes to everything, which often led to committing to things that I truly didn't have the time for or the bandwidth for. And what would happen, right? I'd get it all done, but then I would be so utterly exhausted that I had nothing left for my family. And the most important things in my life, I would show up short, rude, simply not present because I was resentful and frustrated and I was completely depleted. My routine became this relentless drive to work until every single thing on my to-do list was done. Does anyone else do this? Every email had to be addressed. Every order had to be put in. Every invoice had to be finalized. It was never ending. And I couldn't stop midway. And that would spill then into my personal life because it would lead me to working from 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 at night. Then I would grab my laptop once I got home to do some more. And this flawed goal was always to clear the list, right? That was my thinking. Then I'll have a better day tomorrow. But that day never came because more just piled up, right? And I would even be pulled sometimes to work on vacations or spend weekends on my laptop. And all of this was to feel a sense of control that was ultimately an illusion. And so my aha moment, my turning point came when my health and my family were suffering tremendously. The chaos started to unfold around me. And as much as I wanted to dismiss it, I realized I was at the center. My lack of presence, my constant distraction, my shortness, my hardcore drive for work ethic, everything was on overdrive. And it was obviously impacting not just me, but my husband, my children, my business partners, my friends, those I really cared about, right? Because I was not able to show up in the way that I wanted. And so this drive to do enough, to be good enough was no longer working. It was actively harming the very relationships that I cherished most, right? So I want to talk about how do we reclaim your balance, right? What are some practical steps to do this? Well, I think that there are ways to break free from this powerful cycle, and it is going to start with intentional action and a shift in your mindset. I say this all the time, but I have to keep saying it because it's so powerful. One of the starting points for me was journaling. I had to write down all those friction points in my life, all the thoughts and feelings that connected to me always doing more. And getting that clarity really helped me understand what was truly happening. And once I understood it, I gained this power over it to change it, right? We have to have the awareness, then we can change it. And another incredibly impactful step for me was to set boundaries for myself. This means deciding and writing it in that journal. I will only work between these hours. I will not check emails after 6 p.m. When I'm with family, I will not be grabbing my phone constantly. And then you hold yourself to it. And this isn't easy at first, but like building a muscle, the more you commit and follow through, the stronger your ability to protect your time does become. And this will create vital space for rest and for what truly matters to you. When we talk about breaking these deep-seated patterns, we're really addressing that internal narrator in our minds, right? The one that's been shaped by childhood programming and tells us how to operate. And in my new book, Why Am I Like This?, I dedicate a whole chapter to this. Chapter 6, Persistence, specifically discusses how I used buffering, right? Buffering was a way for me to overwork, and I would avoid discomfort of feeling my feelings, right? To feel the discomfort of not getting that to-do list done, I would buffer with working too much. And so I introduced this replacement theory. It's a powerful tool for taking an unhelpful habit and consciously replacing it with something more impactful, more uplifting, and more positive in your life. And so the book is all about reconnecting with your true self and rewriting the narrative that no longer serves you. helping you find a more balanced view of how to show up in all areas of your life. And my own programming really led me to heavily gravitate towards work, often at the expense of my personal life. But your journey, whatever variables and uniqueness you have to it, you can uncover these and you can change it. You can allow your life to look differently than what it does today. So ultimately, breaking free from overworking and overcommitting gives you the opportunity to live a healthier, more full, and joyful life. So many of us are chasing a definition of success that isn't even our own. It might be inherited from a parent or a caregiver. It might be from outside influences or what your, content that you're taking in. You really want to have the realization and the awareness that you have the power to choose. So if you're constantly and ignoring areas of friction in your life that are bubbling up because of this constant push, wouldn't you want to look at that? You deserve a life where you can thrive, where you are present, and where your well-being is a priority, not just an afterthought. I want you to think about that. You deserve to choose a life where you thrive, where you are present, and where your well being is a priority, not an afterthought. So, really sit with that thought and get curious about what that might look like in your life. I've changed it in mind. It was one of the best decisions that I worked through. All right. I hope that video gave you some powerful insights and actionable steps. Please remember to click that subscribe button and activate the notification bell so you can be the first to know when my next video is released. And hey, for a deeper dive into understanding these ingrained patterns and rewriting your narrative, check out my new book, Why Am I Like This? You can find it on Amazon. All right, everyone. I'll see you next time.